You saw everything within the great financial crisis. Of course, Bitcoin came out at the peak of that. Do you remember your first encounter with Bitcoin and what initially made you skeptical or curious about it? Because obviously you understand the problem. You were basically part of the problem, right?
Sort of.
And I wonder, by the way, if you agree if the great financial crisis was ever fixed, or that we still live in that, right? So you have all this like broad experience and a certain point of view on it. Like, were you curious initially when you discovered it, or just skeptical like a lot of traditional
I wasn't
people?
skeptical, and the guy who introduced me to it was a person I met. I still remember that vividly. I can say it was June 20th, 2012. And I met him actually in Europe. I flew from New York to Europe, and was a friend of a family, a friend of us. And this guy was much younger than I am, like almost 20 years younger. And he was, I think, sort of like a semi-professional poker player. And back then, of course, when you are like in poker playing, then you that's where, interesting again, like it's this playing part where people say, how can we pay online? And so in the poker scene, I learned apparently it was Bitcoin. People talk about Bitcoin. So he got involved in a Bitcoin trade very early on. And we spent a weekend together talking about a lot of things, banking. And I was very interested in the guy. He was an extremely smart man. And so he said, Piers, there's Bitcoin. And so he explained it to me, and he turned out to be a successful entrepreneur, extremely successful. And I invested then in his platform, which I think is a tremendous platform now in the crypto space, not just Bitcoin. So that was my first encounter with Bitcoin. But I didn't really pay too much attention. And then in 2013, 14, I started reading the white paper. I'm a math guy. I like the cryptographic background quite a lot. So I read the 7-8 pages and I said, okay, but I didn't really grasp the deeper meaning of that, because so like to really understand what problem did he solve, I got it, like, okay, peer-to-peer, now trust. But somehow when you still come out of my world, like, what's wrong here? We transact with each other, so it seems to be working just fine. And then actually it actually was Wall Street again where I paid more attention, because on trading floor in New York, behind me were like the foreign exchange traders. Mm-hmm. And for their personal account, we're talking about 13, 14 area, Bitcoin was, I think, between $300 to $700 back and forth. And these guys just traded at like soybean futures. Like, what the hell is that? Because they didn't need approval for trading Bitcoin, and somehow they made marks and not for clients, for themselves. And okay, that seems to be interesting. It seems to be a really, really volatile asset. And as a trader, you want to have an asset where you stand in the middle, which is very volatile, because you're always going to make money. And in 2015, 16, then I invested actually in this platform of this young gentleman, an Austrian platform, which actually is a brokerage for back then Bitcoin, now for all sort of like coins. And the initial idea was not like I'm so convinced by Bitcoin. It was more my trader view. It seems to be a very volatile asset, so it's very safe to be in the middle. Even if Bitcoin goes to zero or it goes up a lot, you always make money. I love that. If it goes to zero, then clearly business doesn't exist anymore. It wouldn't be that great. And it took me then a while, actually quite a while, before actually Bitcoin on its own, it's the interesting part. So I spent much more time than really going down that, what we call the rabbit hole. So I think so it was like, coming from a different side, I think, than most other people. It's more like from the Wall Street thinking, trader, investing in a platform like that. And you say, well, actually, now you have all the other tokens. and the NFT, the altcoins, and then like, whoa, it's a bit reminded me of Wall Street to say, no, you come up with all this crappy stuff out there, and some might make sense, some might not. I don't know, but some is like, really? Do you really need this NFT? What even actually is it? And so I like, well, the really real asset here is Bitcoin. So that's how I finally came back and said, well, that's the asset to own. I think that was my journey now for quite a while. And regarding your other question, a financial crisis. Did Wall Street, did we solve that? No, I think, and that's very important. Without the great financial crisis, that's my hypothesis. Maybe I'm wrong. Bitcoin wouldn't exist today in a shape, in a form we have it, because we never solved the great financial crisis. In 2008-9, as I said, it was a great time for me financially, but banks needed bailout. And my view was, and management didn't like that we all should go bust. We screwed it up. We should own up to our mistakes and just let the banks default. Nobody cares. The water is still flowing, electricity is still coming, and the system still works. Whether they're investment bankers and traders like me around or not, doesn't matter. But of course, they play a different game. I was a bit naive. So they never really solved the issue. Actually, what I did, they put the interest rate down to almost zero, actually in Europe to zero. So they screwed actually everybody who was a saver, who actually was careful, who want to save for later days. And that actually benefited people who had assets and gambled. And I think Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, it was, I think the first mining block was January 3rd, 2009. So like right at the end of the financial crisis. The price of Bitcoin, in my view, reflects the uncertainty what people feel, their gut feel about the state of the world, the financial affairs. If everything had been sorted out, if people say, well, it's a stable system, it's not full of debt, I was a debt trader, then I think Bitcoin would trade at like $1, $2, $3. It's like, would be funny money. But I think the fact that the financial crisis has not been sorted out, and it should create even a potential bigger crisis now on a much higher scale, that's reflected in the price of Bitcoin.